Welcome. This is I think it's one of two or three network as a service sessions. My name's Chris. I've got John, I've got Jordan, and I've got Apurv, and we're going to talk about network as a service for a little while. I think we have 45 minutes. This should be very interactive. If you don't ask questions, we'll just keep talking. Hopefully you get some questions based on what we talk about, but we'll start with introductions, so we'll just go right down the row. So, John?
Yeah, hey, folks. Thanks for bearing with us here. The dreaded after lunch day 2 slot, right? So I love the engagement here. Looking forward to the discussion. My name is John Pruskowski. I am a cloud networking leader at Capital One, primarily focused on core connectivity and within AWS and multi-cloud.
Jordan Dukes, I'm Director of Technical Solutions at Megaport. Primarily work with our customers providing direct connect on-ramps, data center connectivity, DCI, basically helping customers on their cloud journey.
Hi, my name is Apurv Parthias. I'm with Meter. I lead the wireless engineering division there, and we are focused on campus NAS. So everything from firewalls to switching to access points. Before joining Meter, I was at Cisco Meraki for close to 9 years.
And I'm Chris Moretti. I run all the infrastructure for Signet Evernorth. So what's cool about this group is you got a couple people on the buy side and a couple people on the sell side. So it'd be kind of interesting to hear the difference in what we're looking for. So first question, pretty simple. NAS, how do you define it? What does it mean to you? And from your perspective, what are the difference makers for someone like you to want to look at it? And what are the difference makers for you fellows to think why we should all be looking at it right now?
Yeah, I love that question because, sometimes I have conversations and someone will bring up NAS and I kind of have to pause and I say, okay, time out. What does NAS mean to you, right? Because you talk to a different vendor and they have a NAS lens. You talk to different people that have different use cases. So, for me, there's any opportunity that we have to provide, simplification or an abstraction of complexity. AWS loves this marketing term of removing the undifferentiated heavy lift, right? And to me, that's what NAS is. So whether we're talking about that in terms of overlay service offerings within a cloud, if we're trying to figure out how to conquer a kind of a global multi-cloud strategy, there's some NAS play there. User connectivity is a big one. I know that's a hot topic for us right now as we look at global user access. So all things to me is what encompasses sort of that NAS portfolio, right? So different services, different solutions that ultimately are trying to deliver an abstraction from that undifferentiated heavy lift, allow us to focus on business outcomes as opposed to the underlying nuts and bolts, if you will, right? So that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
It was interesting as we were prepping for this panel. I very much, all of my colleagues live in a world of, on the carrier side, data center connections, interconnections. And we see the world very much from the WAN perspective. And I know we were talking about from the enterprise perspective. So if I think about like John Chambers and his Nile, startup now, he's looking at being able to, sell access by the seat, by the license, consume everything. Just like you consume any license for any SaaS, but do that for your Wi-Fi access points, for your switch ports, your router ports. And where we see NAS is being able to go out and build a connection in seconds and not wait days, hours, months to build out a cross connect or get a connection from a carrier to take you from Ashburn to Singapore. Once you're on a platform, I don't want to just pitch Megaport, but an SDN Fabric, once you have that connection to that platform, you can go and then deploy a connection anywhere in the world to any cloud on-ramp in seconds and not days and hours, and be able to consume kind of on demand and turn the dial up and down as you figure out what do you need in terms of connectivity as you're building out these cloud services and moving workloads around and your users are moving around. So I think that's how I define NAS.
Yeah. Sure.
So compared to carrier NAS, Meter, we are focused on campus NAS. So more like LAN connectivity, we'll provide everything abstracted to it together as a service. You just pay on a monthly price, and that's all we'll take care of. Installation, cabling, support, bringing the products, services, everything into a tightly vertically integrated platform. And that's what I think the value proposition that we bring. We want a business like yours to focus on core competencies while we take care of the nitty-gritties of running a campus or branch and just abstract away all the complexities that are there. So that's.
Yeah. And it's interesting that the complexity is very real, even moving to cloud, right? I think one of the things you hit on is just the ability to provision at speed, right, and have that global access, right? We have some challenges now where we are very much predominantly in AWS, but yet we still, when we look at regional expansion, what should be a lot easier in a virtualized cloud environment is still a pretty heavy lift to get services into a particular region to be able to have that expansion. So again, being able to lean on some of our partners that have already sort of worked through that complexity and be able to ride that as a service. To me, there's some pretty key value there.
The wow, these things are loud, huh? What's interesting to me is you look at like how the world has changed since COVID, right? So the campus LAN now extends to everybody's house, right? Because I don't know if anybody here is back to work 5 days a week. I think everybody is hybrid workforce, right? And you think about, it's funny, someone said hybrid cloud. I remember last year, hybrid cloud was all over this floor, and now it's all AI, right? And you think about the impact of AI and where that's going to take us, and ultimately speed. You said it best, right? So, gone are the days of we need this capability and we can wait 2 or 3 months for you to plumb a network and figure out the security, figure out how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to ensure it's up and stable. You need it instantaneously. And so when you think of NAS as a consumer, I need speed, I need security, I need the ability to deploy it anywhere at when I need it. I need to be able to ramp it up, especially with AI, right? And so when you think of things like data gravity, when you think about where our workloads are, how does that factor into how you think about designing a NAS solution, or from a providing it? What are you guys doing to make sure that you don't have to stitch together multiple capabilities, that you can sort of use it ubiquitously and be able to handle everything that's kind of dynamically changing in our environments?
So multiple things there. One is there's a reason why we built it as a vertically integrated product. We wanted to be performance, security, what the key considerations. There's no connectivity without security these days. So that's why everything is baked into this one solution, rather than kind of buying one thing from one place, one vendor, and so on, and stitching it up, because that's how we get the best management platform for all of these things. We want to abstract away everything, and that's the reason we own it completely in-house in terms of the services and the product that we provide. Hybrid, I mean, yes, we focus right now on campus NAS, which is primarily LAN connectivity, but in the based on what we've heard from the consumers, we've been going into WAN capabilities. We have a product there which allows you to get the ISP circuit in-house. We take care of that again, or SD-WAN capabilities, or even VPN-like solutions for remote access. And then we work with partners for remote and trusted access to the cloud. So keeping all of that in mind, everything is baked into this one product. And that's why when we talk about like how quickly can we bring it up, we want to be able to bring up a site in a week or in 2 weeks, like from the floor plan, be it in any part of the country, and then kind of take it up, design the network, provision it, and get it up and running, because we know that's what values to you.
Just to add on a little bit, kind of on that same thought, thinking about AI, I think we'd be remiss. Obviously, you can't go 30 seconds without saying AI now. But what's interesting is that I don't think you can go a day without seeing an announcement about another 10, 20, 50, $100 billion data center that's being spun up somewhere in the globe, all because of the AI demands. And obviously, you can't even find power for most of these deals at this point. So that's all about hybrid, right? These are customers looking to actually start either building their own models, training those models, starting to do inferencing, but they're going to be doing them in their own on-prem private colo. So connectivity, hybrid connectivity, is now actually looking to be more important than ever. I also think we have to deal with some repatriation. I saw a survey the other day that said there's more repatriation expected in the next 24 months than at any time before. People have gotten those sticker shocks from looking at those AWS bills and seeing the egress costs. They're saying, you know what, maybe I want to pull some of that back in my own colo. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, all good topics. I think about a remote workforce. I think about access to critical compute services and resources, and right, like location matters. But in a lot of ways, I don't want location to matter, right? I don't want to care where my users are connecting from, and ensuring that they have that policy, that and that secure connectivity and performance, right? I need to care where access to specific compute resources are in certain cloud and hosted providers, but I need to be able to perform in such a manner that I'm getting the same performance and access to them regardless of that location, right? So there's this weird sort of push-pull with respect to location there. I mean, ultimately, like, John's dream list is like, give me a ubiquitous global fabric that connects to everything, and it's all high performance, low latency, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this guy got my requirements list yesterday. Now he doesn't like me so much.
No,
So.
no, it's all right. You're right. We need that.
Do you so like when I think about like a company the size of Cigna, or a company the size of Capital One, you think about, we're so steeped and have so much legacy, and we have so many legacy policies and procedures, and how do you get started down this journey? For us, we're lucky enough to have a smaller network that supports clinics and things like that. You probably have a banking network that's more consumer based. For bigger companies, like, it's hard to think about the transition from very traditional network organizations that do sort of total care and plumbing to now you're going to go out and you're going to sign with a provider that's going to give you that agility, which is critical because our businesses don't have the time to wait anymore. But also, how do you manage that transformation? Because you can't just go home on a Friday, come back on a Monday, and suddenly, everything is magically plumbed. And so what are some experiences in deploying? What are some of the things that, like, for me, I'm very afraid of that middle period as, how do you keep your teams engaged? How do you make sure you do it cleanly? Because at least in my industry, you make a big enough mistake and everybody wants to go back to what they know, right? So
That's a great question. So one of the things that we have done is kind of templatize this. There's a certain element of repeatability here, right? We are right now into middle price customers who have their branch locations of retail, which are all kind of not quite cookie cutter because every location is a little different, but still there's, given that Meter or we are basically in general comprising of very folks who've done network engineering for forever. So they kind of know what will work, and that's what we've codified into best practices, and that's what's really helped. We've had customers who've had hundreds of locations, and have them up and running within a couple of months, with little downtime. That's because we understand there's a certain process of onboarding as well. We try and understand what are the needs of a specific location, because the needs could be different, and then just kind of baking it into our templates. And then it's about getting them running once or twice in one or two sites, and then the others just kind of go with it. That's helped. Also, just having all of this within a single platform has massively helped. We are not dealing with another vendor upstream, which is, we know how our firewall is going to operate, we know how our switches are going to operate and what they talk, and that's basically helped us just go and install and get it up and running. And we take care of design, we take care of plumbing and the design as well, so we know what is expected of the network and what the SLAs are, and all of this kind of helps us to kind of get a site up and running very quickly.
I'm going to give a follow-up question. So just so you know, we have staged questions that we go through, and then I'm notorious for asking questions that weren't staged. So there'll be questions we're going to ask now. We're going to have to think about their answer a little bit. But I think about and I'm taking it from the perspective of the consumer, right? I'm the enterprise buying it. And one of the arguments has always been, well, we understand the applications, we're in the business, we have those relationships. And now if you start to take certain elements of the infrastructure away and make it managed, do you lose that synergy where, I don't know about you, but we've got a ton of applications to do wacky stuff that the network team is usually the one that has to go out and figure out why it's not performing. How do you maintain that ability to get that data to the people that still have to have them, understand the business process, have relations with the app teams to ensure that, everybody has a t-shirt, it's not the network, right? How does that change in the dynamic of using your products to the benefit, right? More agility, less having to focus on something that's core to your business process, but you still need to be able to fit in that stack and work with those teams. How does that work for you all?
So I can take it first. Yes, yes, we are NAS, but we operate both in a fully managed and a co-managed environment. So in the case that you're talking about, it's going to be more co-managed, where we'll be working with the stakeholders, the IT stakeholders who know their network best, and they'll take care of that. What we want to focus is on the nitty-gritties that we want you to focus on your core competencies. So, you have certain critical assets to work on or strategies to work on. That's what we want you to focus on. Whereas you can make sure that, is my certain branch running in an expected, performant, reliable manner? That's where we can come in. We'll abstract away that from you so that you can focus on your stuff. At the same time, it's co-managed. So if you have input, we think of Meter as an extended arm, which can basically help you function better rather than just take away everything. That's not what we're trying to do.
Hey, Chris, I think we should put some pressure on these NAS providers here for a second, right? Because when we were preparing for these conversations. My colleague Matt and I spent some time with our SRE organization, right? And we were like, well, what's worrying you about NAS? Or what do you want? And we got a great quote from one of these guys, and he said, these as a service models, they need to be hands off, but not eyes off, right? I need the visibility. I need to be able to diagnose an issue, and not all the time. If as a service is sold as an abstraction, hey, we're taking away the complexity from you, right? But if in addition to that, you're losing some of that visibility, then that can be a hindrance, right? And so one of the things I would, kind of a call to action for our NAS vendors here is to figure out a way to maintain those integration points, to maintain that level of visibility. And it's a partnership, right? I mean, I think there are certain components of building a trusted relationship that are going to need to happen there because quite frankly, an engagement model, understanding what a severe issue looks like to a customer, and having some of that proactive support and response is not always consistent within the industry, right? So as the voice of the customer here, I think we can both agree that those are critical components.
Well, you bring up a great point, and as you abstract this complexity, you do lose an element of visibility, right? Because it no longer is it my router, my switch, my transponder, my ROADM, etc. Now it's somebody else's piece of kit. And I need that visibility. I think, I don't want to constantly pitch my platform, but I think network as a service in general provides you that visibility. And I think more importantly, provides you the control that if I am experiencing an issue with an application, I now have the ability, within seconds, we can orchestrate this. I was talking to a friend of ours at dinner last night. You can look at any type of event and then go in and orchestrate automatically to turn up capacity. We have financial transaction partners where if there's a natural disaster, an event, or a big trading event coming up, like a Fed rate cut or something, they can automatically go in and turn up another 10 gig, 50 gig of capacity on the backbone in seconds. So having that level of control, I think, allows you to dial in the performance and take some of those variables out of the equation that you can't solve for when you don't have that ability to control.
Yeah, these are all good points. So, just to kind of put a little more another lens on that. So I think everybody in this room has probably gone through a couple iterations of handing over their global network to an AT&T or a Verizon 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, probably repatriated at one point. What's different now? Is the tooling, is the agility just on the back end and the carrier network's gotten better? How does AI, what's your journey? Let's talk about AI for a second as part of this, right? Looking at today, I think every booth here has an AI play. So what's changed in Meter's journey in the last 6 to 12 months as far as how are you going to use AI to make your product better? Is it changed? Did you think about it from that perspective? Does that help with the ultimate, if we're going to go NAS this time, are we going to stay NAS? Or does it come back again in 3 or 4 years? So
Every networking vendor talks about AI, right?
everybody talks about AI.
Exactly. We specifically don't talk about AI. Our focus is on solving use cases. Yes, internally we use AI. We use the telemetry. We have observability is a good to have for certain vendors. In NAS, it's a must have because the more we make ourselves efficient, the more your networks are going to work better. It's for us really. So all the AI with the telemetry, the what if scenarios, figuring out where the problem exists. Can I do proactive analysis? The anomaly detection, everything is baked in. But the goal is to be able to solve your use case rather than saying that we use the latest LLMs or the LSTMs. That's not the goal. Can I solve your case in a much faster way? Can I basically solve it before it hits your network in a really bad way? That's where we come in. And yes, we have all of those things baked in into our product.
I think one thing that's gotten a whole lot better is recognition that anything as a service needs to be built for consumption, right? Just like as kind of service providers within, as an IT leader, you're effectively a service provider to your internal customers and you want to be building for consumption. You need your vendors to be building for consumption as well, right? So, rewind 5-10 years ago, and anything as a service, you were going to interface with it. Here's my dashboard, here's my portal, right? I mean, if you have a vendor now that's giving you a dashboard or a portal, run, right? I mean, where's my API integration, right? I want to be able to interface with you, have that visibility through API driven, so that I can sort of package that into more of a holistic, sort of software driven solution, and then turn around and then be consumed by my internal enterprise customers, right? So that to me has been one of the biggest advancements in the last couple of years.
I think 5-6 years ago, it wasn't called AI. We were calling it predictive analytics. It's this way we've kind of changed the name. We would look at trends and you'd say, I know at a certain time of day or a certain app spins up or there's some sort of data migration going on. then I'm going to take this huge capacity bump. And we'd say, okay, we can plan for that, and we can augment the network. And so now we're calling it AI. It's getting a little smarter and predicting those events. I think we're kind of changing the name on something. It's been out there for a bit, and now we've got better tools to figure it out.
So no more having to put a ticket in for every little thing that blips, right?
That's right.
Death by ticket creation. So,
Just ask Gemini.
so what if you're talking to the audience, you give them like 2 or 3 reasons why they need to do this now. What's the reason why you shouldn't wait? What's, like, from a meter perspective, why should they not wait? And what do you lose by sort of staying on the sidelines?
I mean, total cost of operation is the one. The ROI is massive. We basically argue that you don't have to spend anything upfront. There's no capital expenditure. All is there is OpEx. Give us a location, square footage, a floor plan, and we'll take care of it from there on. So it's you can just focus on your critical business components and let us focus on the rest. Certain things are measurable, certain things are not. I have an anecdote here I can share. So we have a customer, Thumbtack, and the IT has been run by a guy called Eric, who was at WeWork. So they know scaling. He's spun up their sites for throughout 20 years of networking experience. But then he joined, when he was at Thumbtack, they had to bring up a new site. Incidentally, or coincidentally rather, he was having his first baby born at that time. And he mentioned it to us in no uncertain words. He's like, because Meter, he was working with Meter, like Meter as a partner, he could basically still be at the hospital and be with the birth of the baby rather than spending time on call trying to bring up the newest site. There's no price to pay for that. And that's the kind of thing that we bring on the table. Total cost of operation, certain things that can be measured, very clear, because we take care of upgrades, hardware refreshes. For example, the new Wi-Fi 7 APs are going to come by end of the year, and we're going to upgrade your networks for free. You don't have to worry about running those upgrades, or certain immeasurable things which are more like intangible to measure. So yes, that's why I think it's imperative that you move on to this. Cloud computing, storage, and applications have moved into the service model. Networking is harder. However, we think we've figured out on the campus side, having been done this for years now. So that would be the pitch.
All right, he said ROI. We gotta talk about it. So I'm curious in the audience. Maybe we just get a little audience feedback here. Like, as you think about moving to a NAS service, raise your hand if you think like just calculating ROI is pretty challenging, right? Like I think that's a difficult thing, right? That's not super simple, right? We've all heard with managed services, with different as a service, it's the OpEx versus CapEx model. I mean, we get that, right? But how do you actually measure the return? One of the things we've done internally that I think has been somewhat successful is if you look at it in terms of how you are pivoting your engineering teams to focus on more strategic tasks, right? We're very intentional internally at Capital One in terms of measuring volume, time, engineering capacity that's spent on keeping the lights on more just sort of care and feeding of the infrastructure versus delivering new features and capabilities for our customers, right? Being able to really have a strategic roadmap. And what we found is like the more we are able to abstract some of that complexity, as you start measuring those, the amount of time we're spending on that BAU, the amount of time we're spending on that O&M, the life cycle upgrades, things of that nature, has been able to shift over to more strategic initiatives. And to me, that is a pretty key indicator of return on investment.
I think for us, like one of the big things we try to measure is mean time to innocence. And so, the ability to, you think about a traditional enterprise network, you're going to have dozens of different platforms that you've got to go systematically through to try to find, what potentially is the root cause of an issue where, if it's, one ubiquitous platform, I mean, outages will happen, but at least pretty quickly if it's that platform or not. And so from an ROI perspective, so hard, right? Because it's very hard, especially, you think about shadow IT and all these other things that go on out there. How do you actually really measure the cost of, network, and how do you, what's the element that you're going to sort of pivot off of? But, and even for us, capitalized versus OpEx, that kind of changes based on business cycles. So we always look for partners that can kind of do both, right? If you need a little bit of CapEx, we can figure out a way to put some, put some kit on your floor that you can capitalize, and then OpEx maybe the support of it. Or in a cycle we don't want to use CapEx, do a total OpEx model. How creative do you need to be as a service to be able to make sure that you can sell to like from a meter perspective, you go into a retail operation where they've got maybe 5,000 sites, but they're all cookie cutters, right? It's going to be the same setup in each site. Where if you go to like a large healthcare provider that's got anywhere from clinics to giant mega pharmacies, it has IoT, has all these different. How hard is it to be flexible enough to meet the demands of both those capabilities? And I would say even for Megaport, it's going to be a different experience, right? If you have a Starbucks versus your giant national hospital system, how do you build the program to basically at the end of the day be able to prove the ROI?
Absolutely, and you talked about CapEx, OpEx, and what we try to do, and it's a little bit different because we're much more on the WAN side of things, to use an old term, but we're taking away all that kit that you have to buy, all that CapEx you have to build out, those, call it, if you're an Equinix, it's called a performance hub, if you're digital, it's called a network hub. You no longer have to do that because we have all that kit for you. You're basically paying for it, buy the drink, buy the bit, and you're consuming the network the same way that you consume all of your other cloud elements. So I think that aligns those things very well. If you think about a Starbucks, great use case for us, we have a product called MVE, and what it does allows you to deploy an SD-WAN node and bring in all of those retail locations, all those branch locations, and move those hubs, those performance hubs around wherever you need them to be, regardless of where you have kit. And you can figure out what does that performance look like if I deploy an SD-WAN node here as opposed to on the East Coast, and bring that into a cloud region. So giving that flexibility allows you to, there's ROI in the sense that you're gaining all that the benefit of getting rid of all that kit that you have to deploy typically.
I don't know if on the WAN topic, last week I heard for the first time GAN, Global Area Network. So everybody's saying GAN now. That's like the cool thing. So I don't know. I wanted to give.
By the way, I am totally stealing mean time to innocence.
So from a Meter's perspective, we started off, for branches, focus especially. So retail is a really good example because we first identify like what is repeatable for us, what can we make efficient, and for that I think we have charted it out pretty well. For other things, yes, we have. It's not about the simple features. We're also building features which can incorporate more complicated needs. That's why we have like site-to-site VPNs, or we have, we've partnered with a bunch of. We have DNS filtering. And all these security solutions, because some of the higher grade enterprises, security is their thing. Can you make it scalable? How's the performance? How's the security? How many VPN connections can our firewall can our security appliance basically spin? So those are the areas that we focus on with them. It really depends on what kind of customer that we're going for. For certain things, yes, it's very, very straightforward. For the others, yes, that's where we have these complicated features. We also like. I know we talk about abstraction away, and this is also coming to your point earlier, but visibility is very key for us. A high-value consumer or customer will not simply, give over the network and say, yeah, everything's going to be taken care of. No, they want visibility. Whatever visibility you have, we're giving you complete control in terms of if you want to go configure your network, the VLANs, take care of it. But you can do it through dashboard or APIs for that matter. So we give all of that flexibility. But the other option is, if you want us to take over completely, we'll do that in a fully managed solution.
Yeah, it's nice to have those options. So it's not just kind of all or nothing, right? It's not that binary solution. So I like that a lot. One of the other things is we were starting to think about return, right? You asked an interesting question, like, well, why now? When's the right time to move, right? You can also think about your customer, your internal customer impact, right? The downstream impacts on the business. The reality of it is, if you're in a position now where, for whatever reason, your current topology, your current systems, your current network architecture is causing you to spend a lot of time on incident response or proving innocence, if you will, being able to leverage an abstraction model, an as-a-service model, where you sort of remove yourself from that, right? And then what is the impact on incident response, on recovery time? Is there enough resilience within the carrier services, as an example? This is Megaport providing that enough uptime then that we're no longer spending that time on incident response. I don't know about you guys, but for most of your internal customers, and just if you look at the business in general, you can measure downtime. It's dollars per second. It's dollars per minute. Right? These things matter, right? And if you can shrink that a little bit, that's a very real financial impact on your organization.
If you have a model for measuring financial impact that strips away the emotion of the business, I'd love to see it, because typically it's like, it was $1 billion. Like, can you prove that? then it turns out nobody actually knew what happened. We have 15 minutes. Questions, comments? How many people here are actually currently looking at NAS for their enterprise or have deployed it? Anybody looking? Yeah. If people, anybody have any fears, any things that you could potentially talk through, or everybody understand the concept?
Or if there's a why around, this is why I'm not going to NAS. I'd love to hear that. Anybody want to chime in? I mean, we'd love to get some inputs from the community.
And while you're thinking about that and see if you have enough courage to do it, I got to ask this question because it's all we're talking about right now. AI. Excited, fearful. I was with a CISO from a big company that may be represented here the day before yesterday. He basically was like, smoke him if you got him. So he's a little bit fearful. How about you? And I guess more specifically to your industry, how do you feel about, we know that these models have been around for 40 years. We know there's nothing new here, but the ability to get the data and run it through at speed, I think, is really what's kind of changing things now. And so how do you guys all feel about it personally? And then how do you feel like it's going to affect what you do for a living?
I think I think it's amazing. I spent a lot of time even on the flight out here just playing around with Gemini, kind of comparing and contrasting Gemini to Copilot, building images, like building a logo. It's really fascinating what you can do. What's been really interesting to me is just to see the demand. I live in the data center space and what's going on in the data center space and the amount of power. You're talking about a 7 or 8 kW rack is now turning into a 100 kW rack. We're talking about, like, if you're in Ashburn, there is no more power. And there's jokes about a big data center with 2 racks in the middle of it consuming all the power of that DC. This is driving so much change in our industry. And we talked, there's been this massive shift to the cloud. I talked earlier about repatriation. I think we're going to see more of that because I think now you have, not only do you have your data, but you're going to refine your data into this model. It's going to be literally the most expensive asset you have in the world. All this information consolidated into these models, and you have to protect it at all costs. And I think we're going to see much more private DC co-location build out, and again, driving the need for more interconnection.
Where are you going to be building these data centers? Because, where is there power left? And also, how are you cooling all this?
Nebraska, great. Nebraska, I saw there's a big, 100 megawatt facility going up. There's 2 going in on the outskirts of Atlanta. Massive. I don't know if you saw it. Was it Tuesday? Elon Musk announced a $10 billion deal with Oracle. All AI for X will go onto the Oracle platform. And I think Larry Ellison said he's going to build 10 new data centers that will hold the equivalent of 8 747 side by side. This is the scale we're talking about. It's just massive. Great point about the cooling. Everybody's trying to figure it out. This is an industry unto itself. Liquid cooling going up and down the sides of the racks. Trying to get all that heat out of those racks, out of the building. It's a huge challenge, and they're trying to figure it out. And in a lot of places, there's just not enough space to build these facilities out.
So just to think about it for a second. So I assume if you're using your service from a GAN,
I'll take that back.
A network service perspective, you're going to plumb all those connections to those data centers.
That's right.
There's going to be a fight to get space in those data centers. If we do it the traditional way, where we're trying to get private telco circuits into those data centers, we're obviously going to be behind the megaports of the world. So potentially, if you think as your workload gets repatriated and it moves to these places in the United States where typically we have not seen data center build-outs, the Iowas and
Nebraska's more in Ohio, of course.
Yeah, if you're going to try to do that traditionally, you're going to lose to your competitor who potentially already has that capability built in.
So, you and I, voice of the consumer here, do we want to care about that?
No, I don't.
No.
The idea of me trying to plumb the next right data center for AI, I don't want to be involved in that.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I want it, and I need it now. I don't care where you build it. How are you going to cool it? Good luck.
I did sign an ESG thing, so I think I care slightly about how you're going to power it.
Well, yeah. Of course, but to me, I want my engineering teams to be thinking about customer capabilities, right? I want them to be thinking about leveraging the services, building solutions on top of that. Again, not to overuse the term, but rack and power and cooling and space, that's undifferentiated heavy lifts for me. And to be able to abstract that, and I can focus on driving outcomes and building solutions on top of that, I see a lot of value there.
I was thinking about, financial exchanges, HFT guys, algo guys, quant firms. I was on a call with a customer a couple weeks ago, and typically they'll light their own five. They're looking for the Ferrari and optical, whatever they can do to get the lowest latency, ultra low latency between CIBO and NYSE and MAWA. And this firm said, you know what? We just want to know what you have got on the menu. Do you have 200 gig, 400 gig, 800 gig? Tell us what you got. We want to pick. Well, you guys go figure it out. Give us your SLA, and then we're going to pick from the menu. But tell us what your options are, because we don't want to keep trying to figure this out. We just want to put our algos across it on the fastest possible way to make money.
That's huge, because that was one area of banking that was very competitive when I was at JP Morgan. That was something that you did in-house, right? And so the fact that they're trusting someone else to plumb that, give them those SLAs, say you're going to get that speed, that's a big piece. Apoorv, where are you at on AI?
As I mentioned before, for us, the key, the main benefit that comes in is how do we how do we really quickly figure out where the problem lies in the network? Because we are taking charge of your network in terms of support and maintainability, and all you care about. If you lose up time, you basically, as you talked about, you're losing dollars. That's what we want to minimize, and that's where I think the machine learning, the AI algorithms actually come into play on how do we figure out that the capacity needs to be bumped up, or how do we figure out that client connections have been failing because someone on your admin side basically changed the password and forgot to tell people. But the end goal is that people are not able to connect to the network, and that's what we want to be able to figure out.
And I'm thinking about, you talked about wireless 7, right? And I got a little bit of a cold feeling down my back, thinking when I'm going to deploy that to my enterprise, all the testing you have to do to make sure all the capabilities, all that stuff works. Like AI potentially in your space, you can use a lot of those models, get a lot of those requirements, run it through, let it learn, let it kind of see what the impact is, kind of figure out how to sort of fix some of those impacts before you roll it out to someone like me, and that your speed to market, your confidence in being able to roll it out and not you have that Monday morning, what the hell, I can't connect to the network kind of thing. I see a lot of benefit impact to that new product introduction and whatnot.
Yeah, so there are two parts to it, right? Especially taking Wi-Fi 7. Obviously we'll do a bunch of testing in-house to make sure things are working as expected, different kinds of devices. But the other part is, when do you want to get upgraded? Sometimes customers could be, just upgrade us. Do you need it? Do you actually have devices in the field which do Wi-Fi 7?
But I want it.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends. If that's the case, then yes, we'll roll it out. But we have all of those data coming in of what kind of devices are being connected, how much capacity is unused, what are the areas of which are hot areas, and what kind of issues that you're seeing. And an instance being like when Wi-Fi 6 rolled out, we rolled out Wi-Fi 6 and we noticed that a certain client vendor wasn't able to connect. And we figured this out based on basically all the data collection that we were doing. And the reason was that they had not rolled out a driver update on the client side, which basically disliked any of the access points which were broadcasting Wi-Fi 6 beacons. Now, there's no fault of us, but then we had to roll out something proactively to make sure that these devices are able to connect on Wi-Fi 6 APs, just like even using legacy methods. Whatever makes it to get the lights up and running. And we figured it out basically based on all the data that we've seen, all the connection logs that we've been collecting, and just kind of roll out updates, even if it's not our fault.
Sure.
I think it's fair to say most of our kids, the Wi-Fi is the network. My son has no concept of what an Ethernet port looks like, or maybe never ever seen one. So Wi-Fi really is important. I don't live in this world like you do on the enterprise side, but it is so important because that's where the traffic is originating from, all our laptops and devices. Obviously media is consuming so much of this. I thought a 2400 baud modem was great when I was growing up, and now my son thinks like my gig Comcast sucks.
Our hotel one still has a wired network port, and we were looking like, when's the last time you had a dongle bag? So it's still out there, I guess.
It is amazing how far things have come.
All right, last statement. What do you guys? So opportunity just to kind of close it out. How do you? What do you want to tell everybody? Is there anything that you want to know about your product? Anybody want to talk to me after? I'll tell you what scares the shit out of me. But
go ahead, Apoorv.
So for us, the 10-15-second pitch is going to be vertically integrated, right? No security, no connectivity without security. And that's what we really, really pride ourselves. We pride ourselves in building something which is highly performant and takes care of your needs of the network and minimizes your uptime, or rather minimizes your downtime. Basically just want to make sure that you can focus on the business critical components, whereas let us focus on the rest, and we'll make sure that your lights are up and running.
All right, I'll try to get my elevator pitch. 750 data centers globally. we're deployed, racked and stacked kit, physical router switches that we own, we manage, a global network, transcend all the data center operator boundaries, can drop you into digital, Equinix, digital, CoreSite, Xterra, NTT, Colt, and it'll also allow you to hit any of those important SaaS providers and CSPs, 300 on-ramps around the globe, and allows you to, again, consume network the way you consume cloud.
All right, real talk. We've heard from the vendors here. Um, look, as a service, consumption's awesome, right? A lot of what we're doing today is we are doing so on the backs of the technology that you guys are providing, right? Thank you for that. No question about that. I will encourage every other practitioner here that's listening is let's continue to focus on the needs of our business and be selfish, right? I mean, I think whether you guys want to admit it or not, right? Your economies of scale work really well when you're cranking out the same sort of vanilla solution to everybody, and then when a special snowflake like me comes around, you're like, shit, I got to customize for this guy. But I think it's important that we really stay true to those demands, like what we're looking to do, and drive those requirements and those feature sets with our vendors, right? I think we've had a lot of success within Capital One where we kind of come to the table with some pretty hard demands and show a technology roadmap that has a little bit of a gap from where the vendor is today, and partner with them. And the good ones are the ones that want to take that journey with you, and they understand why you're asking for that feature set, and then they can then turn around and apply that to their other customers. But be particular, be stubborn, right? And I think you guys can agree to that, right?
Absolutely.
I would say, and I'm not one to buy into the hype, but I do believe that your business is going to learn how to optimize AI, generative AI, to figure out how to make it themselves more profitable a lot faster than we all think. And when they do that, they're going to need capabilities on the back end that I don't think any of us have ever imagined. And so if you're not thinking about how to focus on getting the bulk of your smart people to solve those business problems, and not getting rid of all the sort of super important care and feeding that we do. I'm not saying that's not important, but figure out a way to automate that or hand it off to someone and figure out how to automate it. You're going to get stuck really quickly in a position where your business is going to need capabilities that you can't do, and they're going to be wondering why the competitor down the street is doing it. And so it's not a hard stretch to think about why NAS is so critical right now when your business comes to you in 3 months literally and says, we need this capability. We need, there's not enough power in any of my data centers to provide what they're going to need. So I would say, if you're not thinking about that now, you're probably already a little late to the game. So
we literally don't know what we don't know.
Yeah,
it sounds cliche, but it's the situation. We have customers that come to us all the time. Like, we don't know what to plan for. Just give us the knob to turn that up and turn that down to the scale and agility, and provide that agility they need.
Yeah. If I didn't play my cards, I'm scared shitless. So thank you all. Hope you got something out of this. We're all around if you have questions afterwards, but have a good rest of the ONA.
Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.